Yay. Welcome, everyone. This is day 2 of Ignite Your Superpower. My playful title that I imposed upon the original title, which is Raise Your Intelligence. But as I moved to this broader topic, I realized that it's not only about raising your emotional intelligence, but it is talking about what you already have, but you're not treasuring what you have, and therefore missing out on utilizing all the resources that you have. That's my idea for these presentation. So to begin day 2, I would like for you to share in the chat what comes to mind when I say, what is most sacred to you? Because I'd like to create this community, this bubble of safety and sacredness to do the work. So are we getting some responses about, okay?
I said, for me, it is family. And I'm waiting to see if more responses come in the chat.
So would you put what came to mind? I am going to say for today and yesterday, I talked about gratitude. And it's, we all know about gratitude. We've been told about gratitude journals and how important they are. And I referred to a Rumi quote, which I would like to say right now. Wear gratitude like a cloak, and it will feed every corner of your life. So if you can stay in gratitude, what you're grateful for, and the energy of appreciation multiplies that which feeds you, it will feed every corner of your life. That is the kind of point I want to make. There's some things you just kind of already know, but you don't appreciate it, focus it on it so that it expands to bring the positivity in your life that you want. People talk about positive mindset and all of these positive things and help you try to change it through conscious methods. But then we have this wisdom from Rumi saying, wear gratitude as a cloak, and it will feed every corner of your life. Don't you want all corners of your life to be filled? That's why you're here. So I want to welcome Jenna and the last person who just joined us, and to say hello, your name, so that we can connect you in the chat. We are just creating a sacred space by naming that which is most sacred to you. So we started at that, and hopefully people will join in and put the word, perfect, put the word in that comes to mind. What is most sacred to you?
There are a couple responses in the chat.
Good.
Joy said faith in Jesus, and
Good.
there's no name here. UW said my quiet time.
Beautiful. Both will be mentioned in the course of this today and tomorrow. The whoever UW is, if you would say, I am so-and-so, that we can connect you with the name on the screen so that we know who attended and we can communicate you directly. Thank you so much for doing that. Now, The second quotation from Rumi is, thankfulness brings you to place where the beloved lives. And that just touches my heart. When you're in gratitude, you're in a space where you connect with the divine, the beloved. And I think deep in our souls, everyone is wanting to have that connection. So gratitude is my word for today, thankfulness. All right, so with that, let us move on to my screen. And let me move this somewhere else for me. All right. Yesterday, I covered 4 A's. I love alliteration: awareness, acceptance, and alignment. So my question to you who were here yesterday, are you a bit more aware than yesterday? Are you more aware of any distress, any anger, any fear, any sadness? Because the work that I do emphasizes how awareness is the light that begins to shine in your inner world. So you have an opportunity to look at that which you've denied, pushed away, buried. And as long as you do that, you are living out of what you pushed away. This is kind of a prelude to tomorrow. Your life today, all the good and all the bad, all the distress, all the darkness, even in the consensual world of famine, of wars, of political insanity, that all comes from your inner world, the subconscious. And tomorrow we're going to spend time talking about the subconscious. But awareness is the beginning to allow light to be shown upon what's causing your distress, your anger, your fear, your sadness. So that's why I emphasize awareness. And I quoted Thich Nhat Hanh yesterday about how awareness is like the sun. Whatever it shines upon transforms it. So that's the beginning of the transformation you don't realize perhaps that you're seeking. So that was the first A. The second one is acceptance. Can you accept what is before you more than you did before? What's the opposite of acceptance? Well, let's see, what image can we use with this? Nothing is coming to mind. When you don't accept, you're struggling with what is before you. That's good enough. When you accept it, you let it in, you acknowledge it. But many of us have unconscious, subconscious habits of not accepting because it's too ugly or it's too disturbing, it's too dark. I think I've made the point. When you learn to accept more and more what is before you, the energy used to fighting that, you're free. You have energy for something else. So if you use acceptance in terms of the distress, the anger, the fear, the sadness that arises, instead of trying to push it away, you've made a huge step toward transformation. Because then you come to the next place, which is alignment with your heart. Your emotions are messages from your heart. Your anger is a no from your heart saying, this is not what I need. I don't need this person who is being difficult or this situation which is so trying for me. It's not that that makes the person or situation disappear, but it's listening to what your heart is saying so that you can align with your heart and the truth that your heart holds. So that once you get it, you say, oh, this person is really manipulative. I don't like being with this person. It doesn't make me feel safe. This person doesn't fit my needs. So once you recognize the message of anger, you can walk away. Say, excuse me, walk away. Or you can draw boundaries the best you can if it's someone that you can't walk away from. And energetically, or in terms of conversation, make sure that you take care of yourself. That's part of what the no is. And fear simply is an imagined outcome informed by your past. What you feel is not real, but fear, because of its nature, gets our attention and it alarms us, it gets our nervous system involved, and we're caught up with the fear rather than looking at, facing it, and realize, oh, it's not reality. So that's a simple thing about fear. The sadness, which I find easier to feel, and you may too, is because you love something and you lost it. And facing the sadness is to face the loss. That person, that career, that opportunity is gone. And you can be sad about it. But if you struggle with it, it keeps hanging on to you, taking your energy away from anything you want to do. So in each case, becoming aware, accepting messages that each emotion has, messages from your heart, moves you to alignment. So that is a review of yesterday. Today is about empowerment through inner child healing. So I will move through the rest of today telling you who the inner child is, telling you the signs of the inner child, which are triggers, the emotions that come up from the inner child, the beliefs and the strategies of the inner child. The reason I am presenting is for you to begin to recognize, oh, I feel this, I experience it, and now you'll know what it is all about, what the source is, the inner child. Then there are beliefs that you have. I have a whole slew of beliefs to present to you. It's just the beginning because these beliefs lie in your subconscious, informing you how you see the world and what actions you take according to the belief. Just as a preview of this, I have been enchanted with the idea of growing up because of not having what I needed. I realized that the world was not providing. It wasn't a welcoming, abundant world. Very specifically, when I was born and looked into my mother's eyes, I saw that she was depressed. She emotionally wasn't there. And so the welcome wasn't there. Her presence wasn't there. And I feel kind of sad when I realized that that was my first experience. So that set me on the subterranean belief the world isn't here to provide for what I need. Moreover, it doesn't provide abundance, so I have more than what I need. So I grew up with a belief in scarcity. And when you grow up with a belief in scarcity, you create that. So if you don't presently have everything that you want in life, you are probably tied to some belief in scarcity or some belief in the world is not welcoming and shares its abundance with you. And unless you see that and do something about it, it will create your adult script. Okay, in the second area are strategies. I'm going to give you a multitude of strategies, and I hope you'll see some that you use and some that you didn't realize that you used. Again, this is all to help you become more aware of what strategies you're using that you're not aware of. These strategies are coping strategies for survival. They are not strategies for transformation and thriving. All right, where do I move next? Okay, so we're going to be looking at the inner child for the sources of your limitation. We're going to first take up focus on triggers. Next, we're going to focus on limited beliefs and strategies. And next, we're going to get to how do you change all this? And some of it will be talked about today, and some of it will be talked about tomorrow. All right. Now, I love the light, self-reflected image that I found. So this is your self-reflection piece. Spend about a minute right now to recall a moment in your childhood when you felt unseen, unheard, and find how that experience still influences you today. So I'm going to set the timer for about a minute and a half to give you the opportunity to recall a moment in childhood. How does that influence you today? Hopefully you have a pen and a pad to write with. All right. Yesterday, I shared with you one experience, painful one, that I didn't know was painful to me, was when my twin sisters were born 2 years, 3 months after I was born. Looking back, I realized it left me feeling lost, confused, not having any direction at 2 years old. And that feeling of being lost until I healed it haunted me as an adult, as my underlying script. No matter what success I found, I still felt lost and confused. So please share in the chat anything about what you discovered in looking at an incident in childhood that might have been painful for you. I forgot who was the last person who entered, but welcome. We're in the first exercise where I ask people to recall a time in childhood when they felt pain, some more or less painful memory, and how you think it affects you today. Is anyone willing to share what came up for them? If not, just to mention what event was you can recall that created a childhood wound. What event created a childhood wound for you? Note takers? All right. We'll just move forward. Remember, oh, Christy,
Yeah.
would you read what she said?
Yeah. Christy said, just now it seemed to me that not being seen or heard without a great deal of effort was the norm from as far back as I can remember.
Yes, thank you.
And Joy said, rejected by a teacher.
That's really painful. And when you're rejected by a teacher or you're betrayed by friends, I bet there's an earlier memory or incident that you can't recall that you were rejected, not consistently, but enough by your mother or your father, and it hurt you deeply. And everything you feel from that rejection is important to gather. Thank you for engaging and participating in that exercise. This is a wisdom quote by K Uemura, well known for his trauma work. It is not childhood trauma that creates wounds, but the absence of someone to help us process it. You know, you can have things happen to you in childhood, maybe being bullied. And if you came home in tears, really hurt, and your mother had the compassion to sit with you and talk to you about what happened, and was compassionate with what was happening in your heart, so that you could feel the pain, feel the anger, feel the sadness, fear the fear is going to happen again. All of that makes a difference. But unfortunately, we didn't have someone to process it with us in that way. And it gives a clue of what you do with your childhood wounds now. Having someone to help you process, having the young child, having someone to process it. Okay, I was supposed to talk about what is the inner child. The inner child is created because of incidents in childhood where needs were not met. The need for nurturance, for care, for safety, protection, need for a loving presence so you didn't feel alone. And when this trauma occurred, trauma parts or an inner child was created with the memory of the pain and the beliefs that formed. A belief like there is no one here to protect me, or I'm not lovable because my parent doesn't love me. It doesn't have to be a consistent experience, but enough absence of that loving, caring presence you needed to create the wound. So childhood wounds create inner children where the needs for love, safety, belonging were unmet, and these parts were fragmented in order to survive. The wounds include rejection, abandonment, neglect, betrayal, often from parents and caregivers, not fully seeing, understanding, respecting, and caring for the child's needs. So that's what the wound is. So what are the emotions? What are the triggers? If you, the adult, feel sudden bursts of tears, sudden overcoming with a gripping fear, paralyzing, or feeling really angry and just want, and sometimes burst out in being very angry. Okay, that's sudden, but they can also be chronic, where it doesn't appear in that way. And we is kind of the underbeat of how we live. Every time you're triggered, it's not about what's happening right now. It's you feeling insulted, criticized, or rejected. That's one level. But it is touching the wound of an earlier rejection, and trauma parts show up to help you survive. So anger can come up in adult situations when you feel disrespected, overlooked, powerless, or controlled. Fear comes up when you see yourself avoiding situations where you could fail, or conflictual situations, or possible rejection. And sadness can come up when you're alone. You feel alone. You don't feel connected to family members, to the group that you're in. You feel outside, like an outsider. You feel abandoned. And in this early childhood state, you feel hopeless. Would you write in the chat, anything that you can admit to right now, just one thing, a feeling, or anger connected to these powerlessness, out of control, or fear because of these things, or as sadness for any of that. Would you put in the chat one thing in the triggers that you can own to? There it is, the self-reflection piece. What triggers you most in daily life? What deeper wounds might these reactions be pointing to? When you experience strong emotions, do you push them away? Or do you listen to what they are telling you? The second is moving toward a different way of experiencing emotion. But here, let's stay with the first. What triggers you most in daily life? So put in the chat the emotion or any situation of powerlessness or of being controlled that ignites some of these feelings. So I'll give you a minute and a half to reflect, and then we can share. All right. Please share in the chat what you focused on. What trigger do you know well? Or what? Yeah, go ahead.
I see some emotions in the chat: sad, feeling helpless, and anger, uncertainty.
Thank you. This opportunity to reflect on these questions is taking your awareness to this aspect of your life. And by naming and seeing what is up for you, you begin the process of owning it, accepting it, and moving forward according to the process I suggested yesterday and hinted today. When you accept the messages of your heart, which come from triggers, you are moving to your learning what your heart needed, the needs that were not met when the wounds were created, so that you get to meet your young heart and you have the ability, the possibility of connecting, and we'll talk about that at the end. So any more in terms of emotions that come up for people? Okay. Back to screen share. Here is someone who said, every emotion has a message. Pain is the inner child asking to be seen. So if you recognize that any negative, uncomfortable feeling, which contains a pain, and translate it, oh, this is my inner child who is asking to be seen. And this little illustration begins to illustrate what her concerns are. Am I good? Am I loved? Am I safe? And the inner child process, which I will describe today or tomorrow, is about meeting that inner child to let them know they are good, they are loved, and they are safe. All right, that was a segment on triggers. We move now to the limiting beliefs. I'm not good enough, worthy, important, deserving. Or I'm alone. Or the world is not a friendly place. Nothing but scarcity. And I had fun trying to illustrate that about the first indicating I'm alone and I'm confused and lost. And the next one is the world is such an unfriendly place. There are child parts that deep inside them feel defeated and feel despair. I don't even want to try. It's sort of taking on a depression, feeling that their motivation to do and to live has been squashed and weighed down by the pain. And then the next one is an illustration of scarcity, which I've already mentioned. Here are some limiting beliefs. Your job right now is to see how many of these, which ones hit you can own. So write in the chat right now the number that you can identify with, like 2 or 5, or specifically the particular number of these that hits home for you. When I look at that list, I look at number 8, if I fail, I am a failure. That's a belief that is not quite conscious or wasn't conscious for a while, so that whenever I failed, I just kept on trucking. I did not admit that inside I felt like a failure. And this belief that I am a failure is what the drumbeat is all about. So by recognizing that, I am one step ahead so that I don't take on the identity, I am a failure, and I heal the wound that that came from. So either write in the chat the number of these that you identify with, or the specific ones that jump out at you?
I see Doug saying 4, 5, and 7. And Joy saying, I have owned all of those beliefs one time or another, self-sabotaging thoughts.
Thank you.
I said number 9.
You know, being an outsider is something I really can identify with because, as I said, when the twins were born, I was outside. I was an outsider. And while I was in Hawaii, Japanese Americans were the majority. But when I went to graduate school to the mainland, I was among non-Japanese, non-Asians, white. And I remember walking in the Indiana grocery store, and my husband then was getting really angry, and I couldn't see why. And he said, "Look at the way people are looking at you."
Mm.
And it wasn't so much I saw, but when I got the message from him about the rejection which was making him angry, it got to me. So I know that one. I am different from others.
And Christy says, all but number 8 have been companions at one time or another.
And it's really curious how they no longer are part of your belief system. How is it that you were able to let them go? And these are only ones that I can name, or actually ChatGPT came up with for me. And it takes exploration to get very specific beliefs that you carry that you don't know you carry, that are holding you down. And this is what the whole program, all this teaching is about. This is like taking the first step to identifying the limiting beliefs coming from inner child wounds that you carry that write your adult script that you need to discover and find ways of releasing. Let's see what comes up next. I already asked you what feels familiar to you. The second is, how would it change your life if you truly believed you were worthy, safe, and loved? Let's spend a minute or so imagining what your life would be if you felt worthy, you felt safe, and loved. Now, one of the things I will mention that in your imagination, whatever you imagine there is like reality, because in your mind doesn't know the difference between things that actually happen and things that you create in your imagination. So here's your opportunity to just go there and picture, how would it be you felt worthy, safe, and loved? How would you be dressed? What would your face look like? Your hair? What would you be doing? Would you be exploring? Going on a safari? Lying on a luxurious beach? Meeting people that you always were curious about and never thought you would meet? What would it be? What are your dreams that you could realize? So I'll give you a minute to go into imagination, this dark, empty space full of possibilities to express who you would be and imagine on all levels, in terms of your body, your physiology, in terms of emotion, your psychology, your spiritual connection. So we'll create that in the next minute, please. Okay. What was that like for you? Could you get into it? Could you see how different you and your life would be if you felt worthy, loved, confident, all of that? Yeah, I love that. I love particularly the connection that Doug mentioned and the connection to creativity, because that is what is so often lost when people are operating out of this belief of the inner child. It's so much about survival. There isn't time for play. There isn't time to be creative and explore. And most of us come with particular gifts that we don't have time to invest in. I have a client who loves to write, but she's too busy dealing with the struggles in her life to give much time for writing. And she has, with enough healing, now finding time to write. It's the beginning to use the gifts that she has. Another one that I spoke to just this week had gifts of psychic connection, being very sensitive and empathic. She could sense a precognition of things that were to come. And when she was in a group, she could sense the defensiveness, the pain of everybody in the group. And because she wasn't owning her gifts and using the gifts on her behalf, she was puzzled with the precognition. And with the team that she was in, she felt overwhelmed by what was going on and didn't know what to say, was confused. So this is how, when you don't own the gifts of your inner child, you can get stuck. And creativity, in whatever form that is for you, whether it's music, writing, painting, whatever it is, that is a gift of doing this healing. Welcome, Kevin. We appreciate your arrival. And we recorded this in 2 different ways. So for those of you who want a replay in about 2 hours or so, I will get the recording and I will send it to everyone who registered so you can catch up with us. Today, we're covering the inner child, who the inner child is, and the triggers, the emotions that come from the inner child. Right now, we are in the middle of the limiting beliefs that come from the inner child. And we asked in the self-reflective piece to go into your imagination and to feel free of all these limiting beliefs. How would you feel? What would you do? So I just wanted to catch you up on what we were doing. Anyone else in terms of wanting to share what that experience brought up for them?
I saw that Christy wrote, it would feel like dropping a suit of armor light and free.
Wow, that says a lot, doesn't it? Imagine you've been walking around with a heavy suit of armor because you felt you needed to be protected. And to let it go, wow, you could jump up in the air. You could run. So anyway, thank you for that. I love that too. All right. So what do we have next? A reminder that the inner child basic motive is to survive. That's what what is contained in the strategies we're going to look at. They are coping strategies, and because the childhood wounds put the child in fear, the inner child resists changes. So as much as the adult wants to take forward steps to change, to be more positive, be more creative, and so forth, the inner child will create fear, so you procrastinate, you doubt yourself. You can't make the changes. And in the inner child work that I do, we identify these early parts as protector controller parts, totally committed to your survival. And because they were created so young, they hang on to all the beliefs and coping strategies. They won't let go because they're committed to your survival. They believe if they let you move off from their strategies, disaster is going to happen. So it takes special attention to deal with these protector, controller, child parts so that they can know that they can join the adult with their memories, coping strategies, but they don't have to take over as they currently do. Because the adult has survived and wants to thrive. So right now, for all of us in one form or another, we experience the conflict between the inner child hanging on to survival and the adult who wants so much more. Now, here are the strategies that I want you to look over. I don't have them numbered, so you can't. I should have, so you could say that one, that one, that one. Overachieving, perfectionism, super self-reliance, people-pleasing, conflict avoidance, emotional avoidance. Let me just say something about self-reliance. I find this a lot in the clients I work with. And it's not a easily identified strategy. I know I've had it my whole life. I was going to make sure that things were taken care of and I could rely on myself. And it caused me to work alone in many ways. And as a practitioner, you can work alone easily. And as an individual in friendship and so forth, you can be, like the Lone Ranger with no Tonto. You can do it. And that it can be limiting. More strategies: lack of trust in self and others, intimacy avoidance, hypervigilance, control and overthinking. I should have put it separately: controlling and overthinking. And there is self-sabotage. So look at this list and see what rings the bell for you. Do you truly trust yourself? Do you truly trust others? Do you invite intimacy? Do you notice how hypervigilant you can be? My hypervigilance is becoming aware of what each person needs. And I am so aware of that I can provide even before they ask what they need, because that's how I worked on a subconscious level. People know overthinking, right? Got to figure this out. Got to figure how to fix this. I could do it. So forth. And self-sabotage, I'll let you play with that one. And I'll move back to the earlier list. Overachieving. Those who kept moving forward, wanting the next promotion, the next level, on and on. And perfectionism can be really subtle. You say, I'm not a perfectionist, but you have a part that never is satisfied about what you produce, and you can see it's not quite right. And because it's never quite right, you can't feel satisfied. It's a push for the unachievable. I've already spoken about self-reliance, people-pleasing. Being pleasant and being polite is one expression of people-pleasing. Putting other people's needs, like many service providers, teachers do, is how people-pleasing is an adult coping skills taken from the inner child wounds. In the group that I ran, I had 2 nurses, counselor, and 2 teachers. And all of them identified with people-pleasing. They pleased who were there with, so much so they were exhausted, because people-pleasing means you don't take care of your own needs. And there is conflict avoidance, emotional avoidance. So you have time to look through these lists and own 1, 2, or 3. So because I don't have numbers, please put in the chat which you can identify with.
I see a few in the chat already.
Wonderful.
Joyce says, I've experienced them all. Doug says all of these to some degree. And Christy said all in my toolbox. So a lot of all of them.
All right. Now, the point of this is to make you aware that these are the strategies that run you as an adult. And when you look into each one, you realize that you've adopted a standard, a pattern, a strategy that isn't yours. It comes from the wounded child. And because it comes from outside you and runs you, you don't have a chance to express who you truly are. You don't even get a chance to see who you truly are. And this is the point of the inner child healing. The healing is to release enough beliefs, release enough strategies, so you begin to come close to your original innocence, the innocence that was good, pure, and connected in the heart with your inner wisdom, in your heart with whatever form of divinity that you can admit to. This is the point of inner child healing, to remove all the limited beliefs and strategies that constitute the wall around your heart. Miranda McPherson, my last spiritual teacher, it wasn't a major teaching, but while I was there with her, she mentioned once the goal of spiritual seekers is the undefended heart. And that is the work that I do with people, to break down the wall that we created around our hearts to protect it. All these beliefs and strategies were made for survival, and all the bricks are all these pieces. And if you choose to be different from who you are right now, to have a life different from what you have right now, you need to take what bricks you recognize, begin to own them, and begin to release and heal the parts that created them. All right, so where do we move next? Okay, we kind of did this already. What you recognize most, how it's helped you and how it limited you, and what would be like to release these, which we have kind of played with. But to go back to these survival strategies, let me ask each one of you to name one survival strategy that dominates how you operate every day. If you could find one, look over the list and see which one is your dominant survival strategy.
Mine is conflict avoidance.
Thank you.
And I see Christy saying hypervigilance.
Yes.
Doug says over underachieving. So
Mhm.
over/under.
Got it.
And Christy says, then I can recognize any other tools that need to be deployed. That's in addition, she had first written hypervigilance.
Right. I appreciate the self-reflection that you're doing, every one of you. And as I said, this plants the seed for what else you can do to become more aware, to accept what you find before you. And all of it to take that wall around your heart created by your inner child to protect your heart from being hurt again. That's what the basic idea is. It was so painful, you don't ever want to experience that kind of pain again. Wisdom quote: the child in you needed protection. The adult in you needs liberation. You can't heal what you don't allow yourself to feel. You can't heal what you don't allow yourself to see. All right, here's the big picture, which I've already said, but I will repeat again. Everything you have in your life, everything I have in my life, is being created by the inner child unhealed. They are survival script. Everything you see, the good parts and the not so good parts. All of what you have comes from what you have in your subconscious. Painful memories, the limiting beliefs, the strategies, all of that. They create what you have right now in your life. So if you want something different, you need to find a way of healing the inner child and for you to cooperate with your subconscious. Now, how do you like this? In the last few minutes of our time together is a short list of things that you can do with the inner child. One, you can connect with them as best you can. You feel the trigger and you say, oh, this comes from an inner child. You see a belief and you say, oh, I know that. I know you. I see the child that you are. It's Thich Nhat Hanh's way in his book, Reconciliation, which is the only wisdom teacher's book on inner child healing that I've ever seen. He recommends that you be with your inner child, you hug and embrace them and give them what they needed. Not only that, in your times of joy and sense of freedom or in creativity, you bring your inner child there with you too, so that they can share in the experience of your joy, something different from what they live with. So that's one point. Another is to be present with your heart or your inner child with presence and compassion. Now the healing scope of that is limited by your ability to be present and to be compassionate. So those are two skills, resources that is worth cultivating. I already did Thich Nhat Hanh's recommendation. I use the inner child process with imagination, which I will show you tomorrow. And that's just the beginning of my list of how to heal the inner child. So, in these remaining minute and a half, please write in the chat what actions you're going to take, what insights you received, any understanding. What are your takeaways from today?
I see Joy saying this is a season of inner healing for me, coming off autopilot to live a life of abundance.
Yay! Mine too. I'm a work in progress.
Leo says, thank you. Today was healing. Great meeting.
Thank you for being present, and I appreciate that. Anyone else? Well, when they share, you can let me know. I'm posting this discovery call, which is an opportunity to talk to me about your issues and how my programs may benefit you, but I will present this at the end of tomorrow when you get the full scope of the work that I do and we can do together and the possibilities for you. I think, yes, day 3 is about your power or superpower of the subconscious. I've said repeatedly today about the subconscious creates the life you live right now. And if the things that you want to change, you need to become acquainted with your subconscious and how you can collaborate with your subconscious to release that which is in the subconscious that doesn't serve you. When I began to put together the content of day 3, which happened on day 1, I got so excited and thought, oh my God, this is so empowering, so informing. So please join me tomorrow. Thank you very much for being here today and your participation. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne.
Thank you, Anna. All right.